You gotta be kidding me. We're going around. Gear up. Flaps coming up. Hello YouTube, Captain Mac here, and welcome back to the life of a virtual airline pilot. During our last flight we flew into Billings, Montana, which we flew in from on runway 10 I believe it was, and so I didn't even know, but if on the other end, which we're going to be taking off from today at runway 28, basically is a cliff over there. You just couldn't tell on our approach, so that's kind of cool. But today we're going to be flying from Billings, Montana down to Casper, Wyoming. And this will actually be probably the shortest flight we've done since Season 1. I'm not positive about that, but I'm pretty sure it's one of the shortest, or at least one of the shortest flights we've done in the life of a virtual airline pilot since Season 1. So that's pretty cool. I'd have to go back and look at them all, of course, to be certain, but it doesn't really matter. Anyway, that's going to be the flight today. Let's take a look at the flight plan real quick. So as you can see, from Billings Logan International down to Casper Natrona County International, it's 232 nautical miles through the air. It's basically up and then back down. And when we do our departure, our taxi and departure briefs and all that, you'll see it's pretty crazy actually how short this flight really is. We have to actually add a waypoint in there just to give us a little bit of distance, because it's not on the flight plan. That's alright. Our trip fuel is going to be 4,542 pounds with a final reserve of 2,480 pounds. We'll just put that at 2.5. Block fuel is 13,183 pounds. Let's take a look at our loads down here real quick. 184 souls on board today, not including the cabin crew and the flight deck crew. 1.2 on the cargo, 1,200 pounds. Payload is 43,500 pounds. Zero fuel weight, 135,400 pounds, which is actually pretty close to our max zero fuel weight. So that's kind of surprising actually. And then takeoff weight is 148,100 pounds. Again, close to our max takeoff weight by just a couple thousand pounds, a little over a couple thousand pounds. And then landing weight, same thing, just a few thousand pounds under our max landing weight. So all around, even though it's a super short flight, we're pretty close to our max weights here, which is interesting. I find that interesting. So there's the route really for the day, right? So it's Billings straight to Top of Climb. KSHR is an airport along the route. Denver is our alternate. Lots of wind information, and then you've got all your NOTAMs down here as well, and I've taken a quick look at those, and as far as real world they would be applicable, but for simulation environment most of those NOTAMs are rarely applicable. Let's take a quick look at the charts and the maps here. There you have the route. Very, very short, and we're only going up to 290, so looking at our wind today, it looks like we're going to have some headwinds, just some mild headwinds, turn it into a crosswind as we get closer to approach. And I've taken a look at the wind at both airports. It's going to be runway 28 for departure, and then runway 3 it looks like for arrival. And on here it's showing runway 21, but if we pull up our active sky real quick, it's expecting runway 3. The wind is 300 at 5 knots right now, and considering how short this flight is going to be, it's not likely to change in that amount of time, so I think we're going to be good to go. So there's the plan of the day. What do you say we climb into the office and get to work? Alright, as has become my practice, we're in a long turnaround state, and the passengers are already loading for the sake of saving some time. Our flight planning and dispatch has been taken care of. Flight plans obtained and filed. Passengers and cargo weights are set. Fuel is calculated, ordered, and loaded. Weather briefing has been obtained and checked. Charts are ready for use. And the exterior inspection is complete. Fuel's loaded and verified. Doors and stairs are ready for boarding, and of course passengers are already boarding. That takes us into our cockpit acceptance checklist. Starting with our parking brake being set down at the bottom here. I always forget to set it before I jump in here and get started. Battery is on. We're on the ground power right now. There's the battery right there. Electric hydraulic pumps need to be off. That's these two here. Landing gear is down. Start levers are in the cutoff position. Overhead fuel valve lights are illuminated. There is no fuel in the center tanks today. The ground power is on. We need to take care of the fire warning system test. Left click, you get a couple of lights. Right click, lights and bells. And then over here, you left click, you get 3 green lights. Right click, you get 3 green lights. And again, if I'm missing something on that test, somebody please let me know so that I can make sure I'm getting it right in the future. Of course, it'll be a lot of flights before you guys see that change because I record quite a bit ahead of the time that I actually upload and release. So anyway, moving on. Recirc fans need to be on auto. That's back up top here. That's these two. They're both on auto. Engine bleeds should be off. In this turnaround state, they're always on. I'm just using the long turnaround state that's in the FMC. You just go in there, select your panel state, select long, and then this is the state you get. And then the passenger boarding has been commenced, and that's going to take care of our cockpit acceptance checklist. Alrighty folks, moving right along here. Hold on, coughing in your face. Well, clearing my throat in your face anyway. Moving right along here as we get ready to do our overhead setup. I want to start by testing my lights. Right click the little switch there, and then while holding the button, move your mouse, and then you see a bunch of them. Your indicators like these will blink, and then the rest of your lights should be on. You see all of these on down here. And let's look down here, they're on as well, and then the overhead should be lit up like a Christmas tree. There you have it. And then I believe the lights on some of the circuit breakers might come on as well in the real aircraft, but I'm not 100% positive on that. So we've tested our lights. Now we can jump up to the overhead panel here, and we can start getting things set up. The yaw damper should be on, but as we know, that's not going to stay on right now, so there's no need to worry about it. Fuel pumps on as required. We don't need them on at the moment. We're not running the APU yet. Cabin utility, IFE passenger switches, both of these on. Remember in the 700 model, this is just a galley switch. And moving down, equipment cooling is normal and lights off. And that's these right here, by the way. Equipment cooling, normal, lights off. Window heat, we need to test it first. So left click, that tests the power, and then right click tests the overheat, and then left click all 4 of them to turn them on. The probe heat's going to stay off. System A and B switches are all on, and the low pressure lights for the electric hydraulics go off. And that takes us down to our air conditioning panel. Left and right packs can both go on at this point. Our signs should be on. I haven't turned them on yet. That's my bad. Isolation valve should be open, which is all the way down, and it is. What else? Flight altitude needs to be set for cruise. We're going up to flight level 290. And then let me just double check. I didn't check my altitude at Casper. It is 5,344 feet. So let's put this at come on, 5,350 will work out nicely. Exterior lighting is as required, and then ignition is either left or right. We used the right last time, so we'll use the left this time. And that takes care of our overhead panel setup. Alrighty folks, we're moving right along here. We want to take care of our FMC initialization and flight planning next, but first we need to go up top and start the IRS alignment. You're going to right click both of these twice. They should both show on DC, and then they'll both illuminate the align light. Left click them to align, and that starts sort of starts the process. We still got to come down here and go to FMC. Verify that our AirAct cycle is up to date, we are in the proper aircraft, and then go to position initialization. And we'll need to set the IRS position to get the IRS alignment going. So type in our reference airport. This is something I used to not do, but this is a good practice. We want to take a quick look here. So we're at 4548 and 108.32. We want to make sure that that's close here. So 4548, 108.32. So we know that it's relatively close. I made that mistake once before. If you remember, in the Milviz King Air, I didn't verify that the position I was putting in here was close. It was actually an old position or a previous position in the aircraft, and so it put me 12,000 or 1,200 miles off course basically as far as the aircraft was concerned. So not good. So make sure you verify those. Then we can go to route. So we do have a company route, although there's not a whole lot of point in it, to be honest with you, because it's just the one waypoint. So I'm not even going to bother with the company route. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just type in KBIL, which is already there once again. Put that as our origin, and then destination is KCPR. There we go. And the flight number is, I wrote it down over here, 116-3116. So it's DAL 3116.
Good evening, ma'am. How are you? I'm doing good.
There we go. And yeah, I mean that's it right now, right? It doesn't even give us an activate or execute for that. So here's what we're going to do: departure and arrival, and you'll see this when I do the taxi and departure briefing. So there is one departure out of Billings, and well, now it's telling me there's none. There is actually. We're going to take runway 28 right, and then you know what? That's all right. We got this. So the departure is basically a bunch of VORs. You'll see what I'm talking about here in a little bit. So we're going to go to the CODI VOR, and we're going to do that for a couple of reasons. It's COD. We're going to do that for a couple of reasons. That's to give us a little space for climb, but it's also to give us somewhere to go. This is the VOR we want, 111.8. So we'll grab that, direct to that, activate, and execute. And then from there, it is going to be straight on to the approach for, my brain doesn't want to work, for ILS runway 3 into Casper. And we're going to be starting that at Isoya, it looks like. So we'll go back to departure and arrival. There are no stars. Now there is that one SID for Billings, which we'll go over in the briefings here. But anyway, and then so it's ILS 3, and then I'm hoping I can transition at Isoya. It doesn't look like it. There is a DME arc we could use. We'll use that. So Hickox is the first one on the DME arc. We're going to go with that one. We're going to execute that, and then just check our legs page. So yeah, there is a discontinuity, and so we're going to want to look at that, but I'm going to come back to it. Let's finish up setting up the FMC first. So performance initialization, our zero fuel weight is 135. It was 135.4. We had a last minute passenger board, which put us at 135.5. Not a problem there. Reserves are going to be 2.4, I believe it was. Let me double check. I want to make sure I get it right. Reserves are at 2.480, so we can go with 2.5. So there we go. And then cost index was scheduled for 10, and I don't see any reason not to do it at 10 because we're just not going that far. 290 is our cruise altitude. If I can get that 9 to click, there we go. And execute that, and then our N1 limit, it's going to be a normal takeoff, a normal climb, because we're going to need all we can get. We are going to do flaps 10 for this departure. Same reason, because it's a short runway. It is come on, my brain doesn't want to work this morning. Short runway, high altitude, and we need to climb quickly, so I'm going to use the extra flaps to help get us up. 4.61 on the trim. Let's set that real quick. Little far. Now you got to take it off and put it back on when you do that. Oop, there we go. Come on. 4.61. There we go. It's actually easier when I use my little my button for the trim wheel rather than the mouse wheel. So 139, 140, and 147. We shouldn't have any problem getting up to speed and getting off the runway. Should work out just fine. Now, real quick before we wrap up this portion, what I want to do is the IRS alignment should be complete. So let's hop up top. We'll right click these over to nav, and then we'll come back down here. You can see it is complete, and I want to go to our plan page. We don't normally do this. In the real world you would, absolutely, but normally I just kind of don't mess with it. But I do want to pull these up for today, And so you can see there's COD. Alright, and then there's Billings, and then there's the arrival or the approach right there. So we can easily connect these two just by grabbing Hickox, putting it right there, and you see it'll connect nicely, right? So I just wanted to make sure it wasn't going to be some crazy, you know, where it was like back here or something like that, which I knew it wouldn't, but anyway, doesn't matter. So I just wanted to show it to you guys. So there you go, you connect those, and then you can step through them, right? So if we zoom down here, there's COD, and then step through, there's Hickox, and this is the DME arc here, around a hot no, and then spide, and then on in. And you'll see that when we do the approach briefing, which will be probably right before we get to top of climb, to be honest with you. So we can close that out, shrink that back down, put it back on the map page, and we're good to go with that. And that takes care of our FMC initialization and flight planning. Alright folks, we're moving right along nicely here. We need to take care of our taxi and departure briefing real quick. I normally do that right after we set up the, well, I'm trying to make it so that I normally do that right after setting up the FMC. So let's do that now. Starting with our taxi briefing here using Sim Toolkit Pro as always. We are parked at the terminal right around here. We're going to be taking runway 28 right for our departure today, which obviously is down here. Pretty straightforward. It's going to be taxiway alpha down to 28 right. There is a hotspot here. So it's a complex intersection of taxiway A, taxiway C, the ramp, and runway 10 left and 28 right. It's a large non-movement area south of taxiway A. Basically, it just has to do with either traffic coming out of here, traffic coming off the runway, so on. So it's something we want to keep an eye out for, especially we know how AI traffic can be, right? Taking a look at our departure, as you can see, like I mentioned, it's really just a bunch of VORs. There's no specific departure here. You do have some obstacles information here and so on. Departure is going to be on 120.5, transition altitude at 18,000 feet, and then the initial climb out of Billings is at or above 4,600 on vectors, and then you would turn on course to any one of these. Now, what I wanted to do in the last flight was overlay it on the route, so I'll do that here now, and you can see this is our destination. So technically, the destination falls within the departure chart here. So what I've done is I've chosen the Cody VOR here. I wanted to do Crazy Woman just because it's called Crazy Woman and I thought that was funny, but that's just a little too far down here. So it's going to be from Cody, and then that'll bring us over here. We probably could have done Crazy Woman based on the approach that we chose, but it'll be out to Cody, and then it'll be down over here to intercept our approach DME arc there. Let me turn that back off. There we go. So as you can see, very short route there down to Casper, Wyoming. Pretty straightforward stuff. And so there's your taxi and departure briefs. Oh, in case you're wondering, so this KSHR, it doesn't like having it on there. It says it must be a waypoint, an airway, or a SID, or a star. If we overlay, I should have just pressed this. So KSHR should be an airport down here, right? There it is right there. So it's Sheridan, Wyoming County, KSHR, and we could have used the Sheridan VOR, but we're not actually going to overfly that airport. We've decided to go this way instead. But there you have it. So it would have needed to be the VOR rather than KSHR, and I don't know why SimBrief planned it that way, but it did, and so there you have it. That takes care of your taxi and your departure briefings. Alright, it sounds like the passenger loading is complete, and we're getting ready to, well, we're ready to press on here, so let's finish things up. We need to set up our main panel here. Most of this we can do from memory. Flight director switches need to go on. Auto throttle can be armed. Our V-speed, let's put this back on the proper page here. So it's 147 is V2, so we want to do 152. There we go. And then let me just double check our runway heading here. It's going to be runway 28 at 282 degrees. So put that in on the heading here. And then we can go straight up to flight level 290, and we may even adjust our VNAV on departure to make the climb quicker. So flight level 290, we can arm the LNAV and the VNAV. I think I forgot to do that on the last flight. It's not letting me arm the VNAV. It could be because the way the course is set up. I'm not positive on that. Usually I don't have a problem arming both of them, but there you have it. What else? We need to auto brakes to RTO. Let's take a look at our list here. Coughing in your face. I know what I forgot so far. We are at 2999er, so let's set this to 2999. There we go. That doesn't look right though, does it? Let me refresh my weather and see if it changed. It still says 2999, but if I hit the Bravo key, no, I guess, yeah, that's weird. So even if you hit the Bravo key, let me, I just want to be sure I got this right here. So if I look up, I'm actually pulling up Active Sky instead of using the link between that and SimToolkit Pro, and it says the same thing, 2999. So I don't know why that's showing. I mean, this technically should be ground level, right? So I'm not sure why that is, but let's press on here. Minimums as desired, flight path vector as desired. Altimeter is set to local. Mode selector is on the map. Center switch is as desired. Range selector as desired. We don't need to set the course. Flight directors are on. Auto throttle is armed. The MCP speed is set. Heading is set to runway heading. Altitude is set for initial clearance. We'll just go straight up to cruise altitude, which we'll probably be cruising for about 5 minutes. Autopilots are off. No flags on the primary flight display. Auto brake is set to RTO. Engine instruments have been checked. We do need to set the radios really quick. So let's grab, what we need to do is we need to set this guy here. So it's 2336. And let's test the TCAS. There we go. Test is taking place there. Speed brakes are down. Thrust levers are idle. Engine start levers are cut off. And stabilizer trim is set. That takes care of our main panel setup. Alright folks, that means we're about ready to push and start here. A couple things we want to take care of first before we jump into the checklist. Let's get the APU up and running because we don't have it started yet. And let's go down here and close our doors. We'll use this page over here. Go to doors, close both of those, go next page, close both of those, and then let's double check here. The parking brake is set, so we can go to ground connections. We can't disconnect anything yet because the APU is not actually up and running. And then I'm going to jump over here on my other screen and I'm just going to get ACARS started. I've got everything set the way I want on there. Start ACARS. The time shouldn't start because the parking brake is still set. And that means we're good to go on that. Let's get the engine page on here. Make sure that came up. And now let's take a look at our push and start checklist. Passenger boarding is completed. Doors are closed and locked. We have clearance for push. Throttles are at idle. Start levers are off. I'm going to go ahead and request the pushback now. We're not done with the checklist, but this will get us started here. Start levers are off. Packs need to go off. That's up top here. So we can right click both of the packs. You know what? I somehow missed the emergency, arming the emergency lights. It seems like I missed something on the checklist almost every time, but at least I could see it in this case. We're ready for pushback. Fuel pumps need to come on. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I don't know how I managed to miss that. APU's running. We can do that. Turn the ground power off. And let's see. Anti-collision light needs to come on. Locking gear. And that brings us up to the pushback. Just double check and make sure I didn't miss anything else on this overhead. I'm really surprised that I missed that the emergency exit lights. It's kind of weird. Yeah, I just overlooked it. It was right under fire warning systems. So yeah, you got to pay attention to your checklist, right? Okay, moving along here. It's easy to make mistakes. Okay, we need to go nose right, tail left. See how this works out.
Departure check completed. Bypass pin inserted. Release parking brakes.
Parking brakes released. Making sure ACARS started. It did. Alright, engine starts pretty straightforward. Let's put this back on the FMC legs page where we want it. And starting with number 2, left click to ground. They're doing exactly what I was worried about. they're not going to back us up on the line. They're just going to turn us right away. Anyway, looking for 25 on the N2 here. We'll see if they put us on the line. It's pretty far back. There's 24 and 25. Go ahead and bring the fuel in. We should see the fuel flow start to come up shortly. There it is. Exhaust gas temperature starts coming up. We'll see the N1 start coming up and the low oil pressure light go out. There's all of that, looking good. What kind of craziness are they doing here? Well, maybe they will put us on the line. GSX is just weird sometimes to me. Yeah, it looks like they're going to put us on the line back there. That's good at least. Okay, the start selector went to the off position already. The start valve is off. Let the engine stabilize a little. It's interesting that while I'm on the ground, the engines seem to stabilize around 20. But once I'm airborne, they're stabilizing in the around 40. That's kind of weird. In the idle position. I'll try to remember to show you what I'm talking about. Let's go ahead and start engine number 1. Same thing, left click. That was a fast pushback. Waiting for 25 on the N2.
Set parking brakes.
Parking brake set.
Confirmation for good engine start.
There's 22, 3, 4, and 5. Introduce the fuel. Fuel flow should start to come up. It does. Exhaust gas temperature coming up. N1 will start to come up. Low oil pressure will go out. There we go, and while I wait for it to stabilize, we'll break away here and we'll come back and take care of our after start procedures. Okay, so I'm kind of an idiot. I have no idea why I pushed back in this direction. I needed to push back in the opposite direction, but it's not a problem. We'll just circle up and around here. I honestly, I have no idea why I did that. But at least we have the taxiway available. We can just circle up and around, so it's not the end of the world. Let's take care of our after start procedures here and get to the proper checklist. Engine generators need to come on.
Unlocking gear.
As you can see, I've already told them we had a good engine start. While I'm looking at it, let me get that yaw damper on there. Probe heat needs to be on. Anti-ice as required. We don't need it right now. Engine bleeds need to come on. And hopefully we won't get that same error or caution that we had the other day. Moving on, packs need to go to auto. 1 and 2. Jeez, sorry. Isolation valve goes to auto as well. I have no idea what's making noises in the background. APU bleed needs to go off.
Right is clear.
APU can go off. There we go. External lights as required. Taxi lights can come on. There we go. Master caution light should be off. Hit the recall. Master caution light's not coming on. That's good. As for our taxi, we do need to set the flaps. It's going to be 4 notches on the flaps. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that should take us all the way to flaps 10. And I'm going to let the flaps finish coming in, and then when I come back on here, we'll start our taxi. And actually, yeah, because I'm going to have to set up track IR and stuff anyway. So I'll be back shortly. Alrighty, folks, coming up to the runway here, as you can see. Let's go ahead and take care of our before takeoff checklist. Master caution light is off. Recall needs to be checked. Nothing stays on there. Flight controls have been checked. Flaps are set. Trim is set and checked. Flight directors are on. Takeoff briefing is complete. And that's our before takeoff checklist down to the line. Now as we get ready to pull onto the runway here, let's get the TCAS coming on. Make sure we hit traffic on here. And we're going to put this on terrain mode over here. Let's get the landing lights coming on. Now I'm going to remember to do this time. Let's get the engine start selectors to continuous. There's nobody coming. Approach path is clear. Let's pull out on the runway. We need to get the strobe light on as well. Right click this guy twice to strobe and steady. I remembered the engine start selectors this time, didn't I? We're going to need all the runway we can get, so we don't want to swing her around quite yet. A little bit more, and now we'll cut her in nice and tight. Probably too tight there, to be honest with you. Just a little bit of thrust to help us around the corner. And let's get her lined up here. And we will not be doing a rolling takeoff on this one. Alright, bring her a nice gentle stop. Just double check real quick. Transponders on TARA. Auto throttle is armed. That takes care of our before takeoff checklist. Now it's going to be a little tricky for the recording because we want to get our elevator music in, but we're not going to have a lot of time. So I may go to autopilot relatively quickly on this one. Just keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and bring the throttles up to about 60%. Let them stabilize. We're holding the brakes right now. Try and get them even there. Alright, release and thrust ref. The master caution was because we were holding the brakes. Alright, airspeed is alive. There's 80 knots. Whew, we're going to be cutting it close on this one, guys. Ah, no, we got plenty of runway. We're alright.
V1. Rotate. V2.
Started out accelerating a little slow, but then it took off. Positive rate of climb gear coming up. And we'll be starting that turn shortly, so a little fast on the climb there. There we go. Looking pretty good. Be turning here shortly. Nice. See the cliff over there? There's thrust reduction. Bring that nose down a little bit. See the cliffs over there, guys? See, it just drops straight off. Oh, good times. Okay, let's try the LNAV again. There we go. Now it'll ask us to start our turn. Watch out for that nose. It wants to drop on you when you do that. Go to flaps 5. Looking pretty good here. Wants us to speed up a little bit. Get that speed coming up. I'm going to get the speed coming up a little quicker. You can see that cliff there. That's kind of cool, isn't it? There we go. Flaps to 1. Keep an eye on that flight director and that speed. Flaps coming up. Should want us to go to 250 once those flaps come all the way up. So I'm not going to start climbing. I'm going to let it just keep accelerating here. There we go. See? Let's go ahead and get the autopilot on now. Normally I'd love to hand fly this, but I want to make sure we get everything in here. So let's take a look at our after takeoff checklist. Gear is up. Flaps are up. And auto brakes are off. What else we got? Engine start selectors need to go off. And then once we get above 10,000 feet, we'll get those landing lights off. And that means, ladies and gentlemen, it is time once again for some of that obligatory elevator music. Alrighty folks, we're just past our top of climb, and as you can see we'll be on top of descent in just a little over 40 nautical miles. We can get a better picture here. 63 nautical miles to top of descent. So we obviously have a little bit of work to do before we get to that point. So just pulling up my approach chart over here real quick. I just finished recording the elevator music cinematics, so I haven't even had a chance to really look at the chart here. But we are looking at 8200 at Asoya. No, we're not even going to Asoya. We're going to Hatno, which is 7600, and then glide slope intercepts is going to be around 7200. So that's where we're going to set this, 7200. And that way it will start the descent on time while we finish everything else up, if we're not done before we actually reach top of descent here. But we do have a little bit of work to do. Let's jump down here first. We have already chosen the approach in here. So Hickox is where our DME arc starts. That's a waypoint that the system added in on its own. And then it shows the airport after that. That's kind of weird. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the progress page because I'm an idiot. There we go. There's the way. I'm like, why is it showing the airport? Okay, so there's some extra waypoints that the FMC put in on its own to make that arc. So then it's get back. You'll see all this when we do the approach briefing here shortly. So all of that looks good to go. We'll put that back on the. Actually, we need to go to initial reference page. So our runway, we've got plenty of runway. We've got 10,000 feet. So I don't see any reason not to use a flaps 30 landing, even though it will be a little quick, but it's a difference of 7 knots. That can make a big difference, but I think we'll be all right in this case. So that's what we're going to be at, flaps 30, 149 on the VREF. And then the ILS, assuming it works properly, because we've got a problem with a few of these airfields where the ILS isn't working properly, but 111.3 should be the frequency. So with that in mind, what do you say we take a look at our approach briefing? Using Sim Toolkit Pro once again. Let's look at our briefing strip up top. We are flying into Casper. It's the ILS runway 3 approach. ATIS is on 126.15. Casper approach on 120.65, and then Denver Center on 35.6. The tower or CTAP is on 18.3. That was an interesting little pause. And then ground on 121.9. Localizer frequency 111.30, final approach course of 032 degrees. Glide slope intercept at Spide, 7,183 feet. ILS decision altitude is 5,528 feet. I'm not sure why it says conditional. I'm not sure what that, I don't think I've ever seen conditional written in there before. Maybe I have. Anyway, 200 feet on the radio altimeter. Airport elevation is 5,344 feet, a little over a mile high there. For missed approach, climb to 7,500 feet, then a left turn direct to the DDY VOR and hold. So that's pretty straightforward there. DDY is out of sight there. We do have some minimum safe altitude concerns in this area, so 9,500 feet. Left or to the right of our approach here, and then it doesn't look like the 7,600 feet is on the other side, but we should be fine there. Okay, so all of that looks pretty straightforward. We're coming in over here at Hickox, following the DME arc past Gipek, then to Hatno, and then it's a left turn down to Spide, and then I don't think we have MEMU in the FMC, but I'll take a look. Either way, coming around Hatno 7600, 7200, really 7183 for glide slope intercept at Spide. And it is the Mauser lighting system, which is the medium intensity approach lighting system with runway alignment indicator. Happy lights should be on the right hand side. We'll see if the flight sim has it correct. There's your pictograph, if you will, of your missed approach procedures. This just means direct. So direct to the DDY VOR. So it's up to 7,500, left turn direct to DDY VOR. So we can put that into our backup or our standby frequency on the nav radios. And then for the ILS itself, again, 5,528 feet is the decision altitude. We'll put 200 in there. Runway visual range of 2,400 meters or half mile. If the runway alignment indicator lights are out, then it would be runway visual range of 4,000? Yeah, 4,000 meters or 3/4 of a mile. I think that's right. No, that can't be right. 4,000 meters would be 12,000 feet, so it must be 400. Nah, that doesn't make sense either. 3/4 of a mile is what we're going to go with. Alright, so that looks good there. Let me put this back over here and let's take care of the last couple of bits while we can here. So ILS frequency 111.3, we need to put that in both sides. And then 111.3 over here. There we go. And then our standby frequency is going to be the DDY VOR, which is 116.2. So we'll put that as our standby, 116.20. And we're going to leave that on the standby. Wrong way there. 116.20. And that way, if we have to perform a missed approach, we'll be good to go. We still have terrain turned on here. And let's take a look at our descent checklist really quick, just make sure I didn't miss anything. We do need to set the minimums. I haven't done that yet. So we're going to put those on radio, and it's going to be 200 feet. There we go, 200 feet, because otherwise you're scrolling forever on the barrel. If we switched it over to barrel, see it's at 200 right now? Yeah, we'd be scrolling for a while. I don't want to mess with that. So 200 feet on the radio altimeter, that takes care of all of our descent procedures as well as our approach briefing. So I think we're going to go here. I'll see you guys when we're getting ready to fly this approach. Alright folks, as you can see we are on our DME arc here. We're about 20 nautical miles from Hatno, where we'll make our turn to final. Let's take a look at our arrival and approach checklist here. The destination runway has been selected. It's in the FMC. The approach is set up in the FMC as well. VREF has been selected, and that is going to be flaps 30. Then we've got it 149. Let's go ahead and go with 148. So flaps 30, 148. It always seems to go down by a knot, doesn't it? The approach is selected and briefed. Nav radios are set for the approach. Should be 111.3 on both sides. 111.30, 111.30, and our backup frequency, or our standby frequency, should be 116. I'm just double checking over here. 116.2. There it is, and there it is. So we're good on those as well. Let's see. We're going to be intercepting a little faster than 180 knots. You can see here. I'll pop it up for you. So at Hatno, it's got us at 207 and then 161 at Spied. So it's going to be interesting making that turn, but I just left the speeds as they were. We could change those if we wanted, but I'm not going to mess with it. You can see that we've had the terrain radar on here. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off now. I don't think we need it anymore, and I don't think we need the weather either, so there's no reason to have those scanning right now. Landing lights will be coming on here in just a minute. Auto brakes, over 10,000 feet of runway. You know what, I'm just going to go with auto brake 2 to help us settle down. Auto spoilers, I'm going to arm them, but we may need to use the spoilers as we come in. Let's go ahead and get those landing lights on now. And engine start switches need to go to continuous. I remembered on departure this time, so I'm happy for that. And then that's it, other than gear and flaps. So here shortly we'll bring in that first setting of flaps as we're about ready to make the turn at Hatno. It should automatically require the aircraft to go to lower speed. So because we're allowing the auto throttle to or the FMC to control the speed selection right now, we can bring in the first setting of flaps. In fact, I'll show you over here. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed this or seen this or whatever. Most of you probably have. But if you look here, so you can go flaps all the way to flaps 1, or you can go to flaps 2 through all the way to 5, really, at 250 knots. And we're below that already. But as soon as you do that, the aircraft, the FMC is going to command the aircraft to fly a little bit slower. And then you can extend, at 270 knots, you can extend the landing gear. So we could do any of those right now. You can see it's already slowing to 211 anyway. So let's go ahead and bring in that first couple settings of flaps here. That's going to help the aircraft to slow down. and it's going to make this turn. So you can see how it changed now. So it changed to 191 just because we put in a setting of flaps here. And it's on VNAV speed right now, but that's alright. Let's go ahead and bring in the next setting of flaps there. And it should still say 191. And as we make the turn here, there's more drag on an aircraft. It changed to 185 now. There's more drag on an aircraft as it turns, right? Because the aircraft wants to drop, so the nose has to be pulled up a little bit, and that creates more drag. So you see how it's slowing faster as we go into the turn. So that's going to help us anyway. Let's go ahead and click on the localizer switch here. Let's just get a little further around the corner. Put it on flaps 5. And now the localizer switch, and it did grab it this time, so that's nice. Let's see if it actually lines up properly. It grabbed it immediately, so we'll select approach now, and the glide slope is armed. And we're not far out from the runway. It's at 171 now, and you can see we're close to intercepting glide slope as well. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go gear down now, and I'm going to go flaps 10. That should work out nicely for us. Gears down and locked. There it grabbed the glide slope. It gave us control of the speed, so let's bring this down a little bit more. Next setting of flaps coming in first before I go too low. Alright. And flaps 25. You can see the runway ahead of us there. And again, we're looking for, it was 148. Right, so 148 plus 5 is going to be 153. There's flaps 30 coming in, and 153 coming in as well. Let's get the proper view. Track IR coming on a little jump here. There it is. And our landing checklist. We just have the approach checklist, but we've got flaps are set to 30, speed is set at 153, landing gear is down and locked with 3 green, and the speed brakes are armed. So she's descending a little quick at the moment. Let's just let it kind of settle on the glide path. So where we should be, about 950. It's single channel because we never activated the other. If I activate the other one, it should give me a land 3. I don't know if it will. I'm not going to wait very long. It doesn't look like it's going to. The winds seem to be pretty calm right now. We'll see if that changes as we get closer to the runway. Yeah, it's not changing. There's the outer marker there. Let's go ahead and disengage the autopilot. Looking pretty good. She always likes to go nose down just a little bit as soon as you do that. Auto throttle's coming off as well. And let me get the throttle set here. And we're looking pretty good. So my aircraft, I should have said that as I turned off the autopilot, right? We're looking good. We're just a tiny bit above the glide slope here. Just back those throttles off a little bit. And you see it starts to descend a little faster just by pulling the throttles back a little. You don't even have to move them much. We don't want it to descend quite that fast. So bring back in just a touch of throttle. I don't know why she's drifting to the right over here. I know that my throttles are uneven, even though I've calibrated them about a half a dozen times. We're actually looking good on the glide slope. That's not PAPI lights. That's VASI lights, and they're on the left-hand side of the runway, not the right-hand side of the runway. So we know that was wrong. We can disregard our glide slope indicator on our instruments here now. We don't need that. We haven't got a single call out yet. What's with my call outs? Let's listen and see if we hear any. Oh, barely hearing it. Wow, I know why those are so quiet too. I'll fix that after this flight. Continue. Ah! I pulled up too soon. Come on. You gotta be kidding me. We're going around. Gear up. Flaps coming up. And I didn't set our go around altitude, but our go around altitude is 7,500 feet. Let's do VNAV, LNAV, and command and auto throttle. Woo! Alright. Good times. Let's get those flaps the rest of the way up. Turn the auto brakes off. There's flaps 5. Go to flaps 1 here shortly. There's 2. Flaps 1. And flaps up. Now it is helpful when the missed approach is programmed into the FMC. I was able to just activate it with LNAV and VNAV. That certainly helps quite a bit. Let's disarm the speed brakes there. That definitely helps a lot when you can do that, but you know, obviously if it wasn't doing that, we know that we're climbing to 7,500, then it's a left turn direct to the DDY VOR, and then it's a hold there. So I'm going to go out to the hold, and then when we're ready to exit the hold, I'll come back on here, we'll exit the hold, and we'll refly the approach. Alrighty folks, I'm trying to get it to go up to 8,300 here. I've reset the approach just by reselecting it, and then I got rid of everything before GIPEC, so we're going to go straight there. It won't let me go to 8,300 at DDY for some reason, so we're going to exit the hold here, execute that, and then it says the exit is armed, and then it keeps telling me reset MCP altitude, but we got to be 8,300 at or above at GIPEC anyway. So I reset it on here, but it just won't. Like, it just won't climb. I don't know what's going on with that. I'm missing something. So hopefully I can get it to climb here. But basically, as you can see, the hold exit is armed, so it should just exit right off of here. That's what I'm hoping for. I don't like this holding altitude anyway. I mean, look how close we are to the ground. I'm surprised that 7,500. Is the holding altitude for a commercial aircraft. I mean, look at this. We're 1,600 feet above the ground. That's pretty narrow if you ask me. But again, you can see I changed it on here to 8,300. And then it's 8,300 on here. It's 8,300 at or above here. All of that's programmed in. I've got it programmed in here. Altitude intervene doesn't seem to be working. I mean, we could do like a flight level change or something, but we shouldn't need to, right? So let's just make sure it exits the hold here. Let's see if it climbs to 8,300. So there it's starting to turn to exit the hold. Now let's try altitude intervene again. Come on, baby, climb. Okay, so there's altitude hold right there, and then let's try that. Altitude intervene. Is that going to work? No. We could try vertical speed. It's at plus 50. Let's try plus, let's just take it up. 1,500 feet per minute should be fine. Shouldn't take us too long to get up there anyway. And then once we get there, I'll go back to VNAV, and probably as we're getting close to Hatno, I'll come back on, and we'll try flying this approach again, and this time hopefully I'll get it right. Alrighty folks, we're about 6 nautical miles from GIPEC here. I decided we need to come back on now. Let's take a look at our approach checklist again. The approach is once again selected and briefed. The nav radios are still set. We didn't change those. I didn't even change to the standby frequency because we had the missed approach programmed into the FMC anyway, which was super helpful, by the way. You guys know I typically won't go around, which is a really bad practice, and I'm trying to get into some better practices here. And so we were just way too long on that landing, and so a go around was absolutely called for. Landing lights are already on. Auto brake needs to be set. Again, we're going to do auto brakes 2 on this. It's going to be the same landing, same speed even. It's going to be flaps 30, 148. So our VREF is going to be, or our V approach is going to be 153. The auto spoilers, let's arm those again. You can see it's making the turn here, and it should start descending. And it is good. And you can hear the sounds are much louder now. I turned them back up, so I know what I did wrong on that. I was trying to get the ambient sound down a little, and in doing so, get away. There's a cat trying to come in here. And in doing so, I actually lowered the overall sounds, and so that made the call-outs really quiet, which added to the difficulty in the landing because I was straining to hear it. It just added to it. So I've got those turned back up, so we should hear those just fine. Let's go ahead and get that first setting of flaps in because we need to slow down anyway. So first setting flaps coming in, that's going to bring us down to 192. That's good. Engine start switches are still on continuous. We never took those off, so that's going to work out fine. And that, again, the landing lights are all still on, so that works out nicely as well. And then again, it's just gear down flaps and all of that. So we're set to 7200. That should get us onto a glide slope intercept here. Again, I'm really surprised at how low they have you flying that holding pattern. 1600 feet above the ground is pretty crazy. There's a mountain right there. I didn't notice it before. I was too busy paying attention to this instead of looking out the window, right? Let's go ahead and get the proper view here. Tracker coming on a little jump. There we go, and let's just make sure it's centered up properly. And we'll be making the turn here shortly. And we're still pretty fast in my opinion. Next setting of flaps coming in. Let's go ahead and as we get around this corner just a little bit, we'll go ahead and activate that localizer. And it should grab it pretty quick here. And it grabbed it immediately, so we can click the approach switch as well, and then we'll just wait for it to intercept the glide slope. Going to flaps 5 here. Again, going to help slow us down. Again, we're looking for 153 is going to be our V approach speed. Speed is coming down really nicely right now. We're definitely well under the glide slope, so coming back from 7200 to 8300, it just put us a little lower than we were before. As you can see, we're not far above these hills and stuff out here, just over 2100 feet above the ground and on a descent. So coming down to 170 on the speed here, and yeah, just waiting. So we got a little high all of a sudden, you see that? That's interesting. But 7200 is what we've got the MCP altitude set at, so it shouldn't go below that, even though we're under glide slope right now. Probably not the best way to fly the approach, but I think we'll be alright here. We'll let it fly at 170, and let's hope we don't have to do another go round, because yeah, I have determined that even if I got to set it down a little harder, you got to get the aircraft landed, right? So I love to have a smooth landing, we all do, but the reality is you got to put the airplane on the ground. That's what you got to do. So just settling in at 7200. You can see the diamond is moving a little bit here. So we're just waiting for that glide slope intercept. We can go ahead, let's go gear down and flaps 10 now. And it's still 170, so we're good there. And we should have glide slope intercept momentarily. There it is right there. And let's go ahead and bring the next setting of flaps in, and that allows us to bring the speed down as well. There we go, coming down nicely. Going to flaps 25 here. And then flaps 30. And as the flaps are coming in, we can go ahead and slow to 153. There we go. She's just a little high, trying to get down there. It's because the speed's a little high still as well. But we're looking good.
1000.
There we go. She's settling in nicely. Let's go ahead and let's take the autopilot off. My aircraft. And let's take that auto throttle off as well. Bring those throttles back just a little bit. They were a little high. Still slowing down nicely. We're going to end up underneath the glide slope here if we're not careful. So So we don't want that, obviously. Little thrust coming back in. We don't want to descend too quick, and we don't want to lose our speed. Alright, we're looking good here, guys. Let's put her on the ground this time, shall we? Still descending a little fast. See how we dropped under the glide slope there? That's my bad. There we go. Settle back in. There it is, right there.
400.
Alright. Come on, baby.
300.
Now you can hear those call outs.
Minimums.
A little slow.
100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
There we go. Settle. That's what it's supposed to be right there. Keep her centered. That's how it's supposed to be right there. There's 80 knots. Let's get the reversers off. There we go. Looking good, looking good. Let's see where we're supposed to go here. We're gonna back taxi on this runway here. No need to go all the way down there. There we go. And then we can take this exit right here, and that'll take us back over to the terminal there. Let's go ahead and get the spoilers back. Let's get the speed brakes off. Come on, there we go. So what I've done here, so I turned down the ambient sounds and all of that. Yeah, we can take this taxiway here. I turned down all the ambient sounds and stuff because it just sounded so loud to me. But I think part of the problem too, though, is I tend to talk really loud, and I'm trying to quiet down. But I think what I can do is I can actually reduce the boost, if you will, the microphone boost a little bit. So I'm going to try that for the next flight and see how that works out. Wait, there's no taxiway lines or anything here, huh? But yeah, I'm going to try that for the next flight. Bring the boost down, bring the ambient sounds back up a little bit. I guess sometimes I feel like I'm shouting over the engine sounds a little bit, right? And we don't want that, obviously. You guys don't want to hear me shouting into the microphone. Did we get her started? I don't think I did. Start. There we go. Get the flaps the rest of the way up here. And let's just bring her a nice gentle stop here. We're across that other runway now. And let's finish this after landing procedures and checklist here real quick. Those guys need to come off there. TCAS needs to come off as well. Coming. Weather radar and terrain radar are already off. Track R coming off a little jump. There we go. And let's take a look at this after landing checklist really quick. Speed brake lever is up. Flaps are up. Probe heat needs to go off. That's way up here. There we go. Come back down here. Engine start switches are off. Landing lights are off. Taxi lights are on. Strobe lights need to go off. I forget those most of the time. Left click it twice. Flight directors are off. Transponders on standby, and the APU has been started. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get us a parking space set up, taxi it in, and I will see you guys back here shortly. Alrighty, folks, just about to turn in here. Let's go ahead and turn these taxi lights off. Here's our parking space over here. Let's get that up out of the way. There's our follow me truck. Hopefully we'll have a marshaller. We'll see how that works out. Doesn't look like it. No, maybe. Oh yeah, we got a marshaller. That's good. Looking pretty good, just bringing it in here. Need to keep moving forward though. A little further. My bad. And then I went too far. It's a little hard when you're watching the numbers. I don't know. I'm not great at that, I guess. Track car coming off, little jump. Tiny little jump there. That was nice. Let's get the parking brake set. There we go. Let's double check, make sure that APU is up and running here. It is. Send the power out from that. And let's go ahead and cut the engines. 1 and 2. We can jump down here. And we can get some doors open here. So open 1, open 2, and get those cargo doors open as well. And then go to ground connections, set the chocks, ground power, and all that good stuff. We can turn the ground power on. We can turn the APU off. And let's start taking a look at our checklist here. We know that the fuel pumps are going to need to come off. We know that the anti-collision lights, wing lights are already off. We know window heat's going to need to go off. We know that our electric hydraulic pumps are going to need to go off. And let's see what else we got here. Let's take a look at shutdown and secure checklist. Brakes are on, start levers are cut off, ground power is on, doors are open, stairs are attached, fuel pumps are off, cabin utility IFE passenger switches both need to go off. Signs can go off so the passengers know they can get up, right? I don't hear them offloading yet. Request deboarding, that's why. There we go. Now they'll start offloading. Window heat is off, probe heat is off, electric hydraulics are off, all bleeds need to go off. What else here? Isolation valve needs to be closed, right click that one. Recirc fans are on auto, external lighting is off or as needed, emergency exit lights can go off, right click, and then right click the little toggle in the middle there. And we're going to leave the battery and the ground power on now while the passengers offload, and that means that's going to wrap it up for this one, ladies and gentlemen. That was a fun flight. I hope that you enjoyed it. It's really short. I'm really glad that I executed the missed approach procedure. Again, always trying to do a better job. Smooth landings are always nice, but you know, we want to fly properly, and landing that aircraft that long would have been a bad decision on my part. And so I want to make better decisions. It may be flight simulator, but if we're trying to be realistic, that means we need to make realistic decisions as well, and landing that aircraft would not have been a realistic, good realistic decision anyway. Let's take care of ACARS real quick. You can see that our landing rate ended up being a -83. So really it's just about having confidence in the aircraft, knowing when to cut the throttles, when to flare the aircraft, all of that, and just doing it right. Having the call-outs audible to you really helps a lot. You don't have those in, like, say, a Cessna 172. I'm going to file this PIREP. You may not have those in, like, a Cessna 172, but when you're flying in the real aircraft, you have a visibility that you don't have in the flight simulator, and it does make a difference when you're landing. But in a large aircraft like this, at high speeds and heavy weights, those call-outs are absolutely important and crucial. And if you don't, if the company doesn't have the call-outs built, programmed into the aircraft, you've got a first officer to call out altitudes for you as well. So all of those things combine to mean that you should have your call-outs audible, you should listen to them, and fly the aircraft properly, right? So like I said, I'm glad I did the missed approach. I hope that you guys enjoyed that. I hope that you enjoyed the entire flight. I'm looking forward to the next one. If you haven't already taken the opportunity, please go ahead and smash that subscribe button. Trying to get up over 10,000 or to 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We're a little over 8,500 right now. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed the content. That lets me know that I'm doing a good job. And if you didn't enjoy it, you can give it a thumbs down. But please give me some sort of constructive and yet kind criticism down in the comments so that I can do a better job in the future. That's it. That's all and no more, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, as always, keep the blue side up unless otherwise instructed by ATC. God bless you all and have an absolutely wonderful day.